At 16, my parents framed me for my brother's robbery and dumped me at a farm with a trash bag, saying, "We're not ruining his life to save yours." 13 years later, they walked into my law office begging me to keep him out of prison. Sup Reddit, so I, 29 male, and I need to tell you about the night my parents chose a varsity jacket over their own blood. It started with my phone lighting up at 11:52 p.m. on a Wednesday in February. Blaze, my 14-year-old brother, the kid who could torch an orphanage and mom would blame the matches. I was 16, pulling overtime at Davidson's warehouse, stacking pallets in the freezer section because the forklift was down. "Malcolm, get here now. I'm screwed." Not his usual whining. Real panic. The kind that makes your stomach drop. He was at Riverside High with his crew, two friends from his team. They jimmied open the maintenance entrance, found the safe with athletics department money, cracked it with a pry bar, and grabbed cash from gate receipts. Then, one of them tagged the walls while the other smashed the equipment room for fun. Motion sensors had already pinged campus security. I should have told him to eat it. Instead, I ran. That's what 14 years of conditioning does. You're the older brother. You fix problems. You take the heat. Dad drilled it into me every time Blaze screwed up, which was weekly. 6 blocks in February cold, lungs burning, fingers going numb through my work gloves. All to save a brother who'd throw me to sharks for $1. I hit Marshall Avenue right as 2 cop cars rolled up, lights flashing. 3 officers climbing out, hands hovering near belts. Blaze standing by the side door with his 2 friends, looking like prep school angels. The second he saw me running toward them in my warehouse jacket with the company logo, sweating, breathing hard, looking exactly like someone fleeing a crime scene, his whole posture changed. Blaze shoved the pry bar into my hands without hesitation. "Officers, my brother made us do it. He said he'd beat me if I didn't help." I stood there like an idiot, pry bar in hand, chest heaving, while 3 cops took in the scene. Winded teenager in work clothes holding the tool versus 3 clean kids in athletic gear. "Drop it, hands up, now." "Officer, I just got here." I said hands up. Cuffs bit into my wrists. Too tight. They patted me down, found my phone and warehouse keys, walked me to the cruiser. The back seat smelled like sweat, and whatever they used to clean up after incidents. Through the window, I watched a 3rd car pull up. My parents. My dad stepped out of his Lexus wearing a sport coat at midnight. My mom in her designer coat and that look she saved for the help. They walked past my cruiser without a glance. Wrapped Blaze in mom's coat like he'd survived Normandy. Dad was already working, shaking hands with the lead cop, leaning in close. My father collected favors like baseball cards. The deputy mayor, the district attorney, the watch commander he played racquetball with every Thursday. The officer opened my door and hauled me out. I tried one last time. "Dad, check Blaze's phone, check his call log. He's got the cash in his pocket right now." Mom's face went cold. Not angry, calculated. She stepped between us, designer nails pointing at my chest. "Blaze is a good kid, officer. Honor student, varsity track, has college scouts watching. Malcolm has always been jealous of his brother's success. We've tried counseling, consequences, structure. Nothing works. He threatened Blaze tonight, forced him into this." "That's not true." "Don't you dare," she hissed. "You've been stealing from us for months. 40 here, 60 there. We should have seen this coming." I'd never stolen anything, but I recognized the play. She was building her story. Another officer walked over with an evidence bag. "Found this on your brother, ma'am." Inside, $800 in mixed bills. For 1 second, I thought the truth would win. Then Dad spoke up, lawyer voice on full. "Malcolm gave that to Blaze to hold. Told him there'd be consequences if he talked. My older son is bigger, stronger. Look at the size difference, officer." Blaze was terrified. He paused, building his case. He's been obsessed with that safe for weeks. Kept talking about it at dinner. I stared at him. He was inventing details he thought sounded right. Manufacturing evidence in real time. I was 5 feet 11 inches and maybe 165 pounds. Blaze was 5 feet 9 inches and built like a linebacker. But facts don't matter when you're in warehouse gear versus Adidas. The cops huddled up. I caught fragments. First offense for both. Minors, parents cooperative, younger one seems traumatized. 20 minutes later, they had their deal worked out. Dad had mentioned his racquetball games with the watch commander, his donations to the police athletic league, Blaze's bright future and scholarship potential. The play. Blaze goes home with a warning and counseling. I get processed downtown. "You're making a mistake," I told the officer. "Kid, I've been doing this 19 years. This story writes itself. 4 hours in holding, metal bench, fluorescent lights buzzing. Industrial cleaner trying to hide the smell, but not really managing it. Someone singing Springsteen off-key in the next cell at 3:52 a.m. Harrington, your parents are here. I thought they were taking me home. Wrong. Dad drove in silence. Mom stared out the window like I wasn't there. Blaze wasn't in the car, already home in his room with his trophies and his future intact. We pulled into our driveway at 4:31 a.m. Dad didn't hit the garage. Parked in the driveway, engine running, popped the trunk. Get out! He pulled a black contractor bag from the trunk, threw it on the concrete. Pack, 10 minutes. What are you talking about? You heard me. You destroyed this family's name. Police have you on file. If this goes to trial, Blaze gets dragged in. He's got scouts coming in March. D3 programs looking at him. You think they recruit kids with records? He looked at me like I was a broken appliance. You're a liability, Malcolm. Blaze is an asset. That's just math. I didn't do anything. What you did, Mom cut in, voice cold, was force us to choose. We chose the son with a future over the son who's always been a problem. Her voice cracked slightly. You think this is easy for us? We're trying to protect this family. If Blaze's name gets dragged through the mud, it destroys everything we've built. You're 16. You'll recover. Blaze has got scouts, opportunities. We have to think about what's best for everyone. She actually believed it. I could see it in her face. She'd rewritten the story so thoroughly that she was the victim here, doing the hard thing, making the sacrifice. A problem? I work 40 hours a week. I make honor roll. Made, she corrected. Until tonight. You're going to Uncle Ward and Aunt Nadine in Pennsylvania. We called them. They agreed to take you in. That's 4 hours away. What about school? My job? You lost your job when you abandoned your shift? We contacted the principal. He understood when we explained your behavioral issues. Behavioral issues. Like I was defective. Get your things. 9 minutes left. I walked into the house I'd lived in 16 years. Past Blaze's room. Door closed. Probably sleeping like a baby. Not a care in the world. My room looked the same. Bed I didn't make this morning. Backpack with my unfinished physics homework. Posters on the wall. Computer humming. I grabbed the bag and started throwing stuff in. Clothes, shoes, textbooks I'd paid for myself, the 400 in savings bonds from my grandmother before she died, a photo of me and my dog Max before they put him down without telling me. Came home from school one day. He was just gone. 8 minutes to pack 16 years into a trash bag. When I came down, Mom was holding my phone, the one I'd bought myself. I'll need that. What? No, I paid. Phones are for family. She dropped it in her purse. Ward and Nadine don't have good service anyway. That's when it clicked. This wasn't punishment. This was deletion. They were erasing me. The drive to Pennsylvania was 4 hours of silence. I sat in back with the trash bag, watching streetlights turn into highway darkness. Then absolute nothing. No phone, no music, just the Lexus engine and my mother's occasional sighs. Around 7 a.m., the sun came up. We passed through farm country. Gray fields, bare trees, cold mist over everything. Looked dead out there. Finally, we turned onto a gravel road. Mailbox that said Miller in faded paint. Long driveway to a white farmhouse. Paint peeling. Big barn. The smell hit me through the vents. Wet earth, animals, manure. Uncle Ward and Aunt Nadine were on the porch. I'd met them twice. Grandma's funeral when I was 11, and one family reunion that ended in a screaming match. Dad and Ward hadn't spoken since. Dad didn't turn off the engine. Got out, opened the trunk, dumped my bag in the gravel. Appreciate you taking him. We could have pressed charges. Maybe farm work will straighten him out. Uncle Ward, tall, weathered, wearing Carhartt and work boots, looked from the bag to me to his brother. Then he spat tobacco juice that landed an inch from Dad's shoes. We didn't take him to do you a favor, Alaric. We took him because we're not letting you throw a kid to the wolves. Dad's face went red. How dare? How dare I? You show up at dawn, dump your son like trash, and want me to what? Shake your hand? Mom stayed in the car. Window up, playing statue. Dad shoved an envelope at Aunt Nadine. Transfer papers, emergency contacts. He's your problem. Don't call asking for money. Aunt Nadine took it without a word. Face red, eyes wet. Dad backed out, spun gravel, took off. The Lexus disappeared, leaving dust that settled on my clothes. Got in my mouth, tasted awful. I stood there, 16, black bag at my feet, in front of virtual strangers on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, waiting for the lecture, the rules, to be told I was a burden. Instead, Aunt Nadine walked down and pulled me into a hug. She smelled like coffee and fresh laundry and warmth. "I'm so sorry, Malcolm," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." That's when I lost it. Not silent tears, full-on ugly crying. Aunt Nadine just held tighter. "Come on," Uncle Ward said quietly, picking up my bag like it weighed nothing. "Let's get you inside. You look frozen." The farmhouse was warm. Wood stove cranking heat, smell of bacon and coffee. Furniture old but solid. None of Mom's designer obsession. Aunt Nadine made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast with homemade jam. I ate like I'd been starving. "Your room's upstairs," Ward said, pouring coffee. "Used to be the spare room, but it's yours now. Small, but it's got a decent view. Nadine put fresh sheets on last night. We'll get you enrolled at Twin Valley on Monday," Nadine added. 20-minute bus ride. Picks up at 6:45. "What about work? I need to save." "We'll figure it out," Ward said. "Right now, you need to rest. You've been through hell." I looked at them. Really looked. They weren't rich. The farm was struggling. Outdated appliances, worn furniture, Nadine scraping every bit of jam from the jar. But they'd taken me in without hesitation. "Why?" I asked. "Why are you doing this?" Ward set down his mug. "Because you're family, Malcolm. Real family. Not the country club variety. The kind that shows up when it counts." That night, I lay in my new room looking out at fields going dark in the distance. I pulled out the only thing I'd hidden from Mom, my grandfather's pocket watch. Grandma gave it to me at her funeral. Inside was a tiny photo, her maiden name engraved, Dorothea Miller. I made a promise. On my 18th birthday, I'd kill Malcolm Harrington. I'd become Malcolm Miller, and I'd make sure Harrington meant nothing but shame. But first, I had to survive. The first night on the farm, I couldn't sleep, kept waiting for the door to open, for Dad to say this was all a lesson, that I'd learned my place. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps. Nadine checking on me. She didn't say anything, just left a plate of cookies on the dresser and closed the door soft. I cried into the pillow so she wouldn't hear. Farm life was brutal. 4:30 a.m. chores, school, homework, more chores. Hands always bleeding from something. I passed out at my desk twice in the first month. Nadine found me face down in my algebra textbook at 2 a.m., told me I was going to kill myself. I said good, then they win. She slapped me just hard enough to snap me out of it. "Don't give them that. Don't give them anything." I didn't. 2 months in, legal papers arrived. Permanent transfer of guardianship, release of liability. They'd legally disowned me. Protected their assets in case I ever sued. I signed them in the kitchen while Ward watched. "You don't have to," he said. "Yeah, I do." I pushed the papers across the table. "They want me gone. I'll be gone." That night, I started a notebook. Page 1. Everything I knew about the break-in. Blaze call time. The cops' arrival time. What Dad said about the safe location. Wrong details, I wrote, he guessed. Evidence he manufactured. Page 2. Guardianship laws. Page 3. Name change requirements. The day I turned 18, I walked into the Philadelphia County Courthouse and filed for a name change. Sat for 2 hours with people escaping bad marriages, witness protection, fresh starts. When the official called my name, I stood up. "Malcolm Harrington petitioning for name change to Malcolm Miller, Your Honor." Reason? The name Harrington represents people who abandoned their responsibilities. Miller represents the family who took those responsibilities seriously. He looked at me for a long moment. Granted. Next case. I walked out as Malcolm Miller. Sent a certified copy to my parents' address. It came back 2 weeks later. Returned to sender. Unopened. I graduated high school valedictorian. My parents didn't show. Got a full ride to Penn State. Worked 2 jobs, restaurant nights, legal aid clinic days. Slept 4 hours. Ate ramen and whatever the restaurant let me take home. Saved every dollar. My roommate asked why I never went out. "Because I'm building something," I told him. "Building what?" "A way out." Law school. Then straight into the DA's office. Economic Crimes Unit. Not because I wanted to save the world. Because I wanted to learn how they'd buried me. How cases get built when someone's already decided you're guilty. I learned timelines, bank records, phone dumps, subpoenas. How to trap people with their own patterns. Timeline doesn't lie. People do. When my supervisor told me to make it fit on a case that felt wrong, I quit. Went into criminal defense. By 27, I'd joined a small firm called Bradford and Associates. It wasn't big law, but it had a solid reputation in white-collar defense. I billed like a psycho. 70 to 80-hour weeks, no vacations, always available. Not because I was brilliant, because I was relentless. When I brought in 2 major corporate retainers and built a referral pipeline, They made me junior partner. Changed the firm name to Miller and Bradford. First time my chosen name meant something in the legal world. First thing I did with partner money. Hired a financial analyst to pull public records on the Harrington family. Guy worked financial crimes background, specialized in forensic accounting. Cost more than my rent, but I needed a paper trail. No tailing, no photos through windows, no nonsense, just court dockets, liens, LLC filings, and credit traces. Not paranoia. Strategy. Monthly reports were basically a memo of public filings and case updates. He sent them like clockwork. 2 years later, at 29, I bought out the retiring founding partner and became senior partner. Youngest in firm history. Office with a door that locked. I sent Ward and Nadine checks big enough to fix the farm. I built the life my parents said I'd never have, and I waited. The reports came monthly. They painted a picture of Blaze's life unraveling through public records, court filings, business registrations, property transfers. Without me as the scapegoat, the family dynamic had shifted. Blaze became the sole focus, and he was bleeding them dry. The analyst had pieced together the whole ugly history from records going back years. Blaze had flunked out of Penn State freshman year. Dad pulled strings to get him into Westchester. Blaze lasted a semester before academic probation turned into dismissal. He managed to scrape into a third school, some no-name place that would take anyone with a pulse and a check, where he got a girl pregnant before washing out entirely. My parents pressured him to marry her. Big wedding at the country club they couldn't afford. 8 months later, divorce. Brutal custody battle where my parents burned through tens of thousands on lawyers fighting for visitation rights to a grandkid they eventually ignored. Never held a job longer than 13 months. Fired for falsifying inspection reports at a car dealership, dealing steroids at a gym, forging claim documents at an insurance company. Each time Dad would make calls, pull favors, get Blaze another shot. The golden child was tarnishing fast. Then came the really good part. Dad burned every favor to get Blaze hired at Meridian Properties, a mid-sized commercial real estate firm. Acquisitions coordinator. Blaze found a way to screw it up. The report that hit my desk on a Tuesday in October was perfect. Subject: Blaze Harrington, federal investigation. Over 23 months, Blaze had been running a systematic kickback scheme, created a shell company called Keystone Consulting Services, submitted inflated appraisals to Meridian, approved his own fraudulent contracts, funneled $189,000 into an account he controlled, used the money to fund a sports betting addiction. DraftKings, FanDuel, offshore sites, local bookies, lost most of it. Spent the rest on a business venture that was really just him leasing office space he never used and buying a BMW. Meridian's CFO caught it during a routine audit, found the pattern, called the feds. Federal prosecutors were building a wire fraud and embezzlement case. Blaze was looking at 8 to 12 years federal time. And here's the beautiful part. My parents were broke. The financial analysis showed everything. They'd refinanced the house twice, once for Blaze's divorce lawyers, once for his business investment. They'd drained their retirement accounts, maxed out 5 credit cards, living on Social Security and fumes. I sat in my office chair, looking at the case summary compiled from federal court dockets. Blaze at 27, case number listed, charges pending. I closed the file, set it in my desk drawer with the others. I had 3 depositions to prep, a motion to file by 5, and a client dinner at 7. The Harrington family drama was just background noise now. I'd moved on, built something they said I never would. I turned back to my computer and pulled up the Henderson case files. 2 days later, my assistant walked into my office holding an intake sheet. Her face looked odd, careful. "Malcolm, we just got a call. Potential clients for Friday, federal white-collar case. Embezzlement, wire fraud. They're desperate. Someone at their country club recommended us. Said we're the shark they need." I didn't look up from my screen. "Run the credit check. If they can't pay the retainer, pass them to someone else." "Already did." She paused. "They're underwater. Can't afford our rates." "But Malcolm, the name." Something in her voice made me look up. She slid the intake sheet across my desk. Alaric and Linnea Harrington. The room went quiet. I could hear the ventilation system. Traffic 15 floors below. My own heartbeat. I stared at the names. The handwriting. The phone number with the same area code I grew up with. My hand started to shake. I pressed it flat against the desk. She stood there, waiting. She knew enough of my history. Knew the name Harrington meant something. "Malcolm, I can refer them out. You don't have to book them." My voice came out steady. Cold. "What?" "Friday, 2 p.m. conference room B." "Malcolm, that's a conflict of interest." Emotional compromise. Let me pass this to conference room B, I repeated, the one with the glass walls. She looked at me for a long moment. Understanding dawned on her face. You want them to see everything. I want them to feel how far they have to climb just to beg. She hesitated, then picked up the intake sheet. Their credit check came back. They're drowning. We normally require a $40,000 retainer for federal cases. They can't. I know. Book them anyway. I'll be in the room. Wouldn't have it any other way. She left. I sat there staring at where the intake sheet had been. Friday at 2 p.m. Conference Room B. 13 years. And they were finally coming to me. Friday at 1:58 p.m., I stood at my window in my charcoal suit, burgundy tie. I'd cleared my afternoon. Turned off my phone. I wanted complete control when they walked in. At 2 p.m. exactly, I walked to Conference Room B. Through the glass walls, I could see them before they saw me. They looked small. Dad had lost most of his hair, wearing a suit that looked expensive from distance but was frayed at the cuffs, a stain on the collar poorly hidden, skin gray and waxy, hands shaking as he gripped his briefcase. Mom had aged hard. Too much makeup trying to cover stress lines. Clutching a knockoff purse. I could tell from the hardware. Her pearls looked real, but I'd bet they were fake. The real ones probably sold months ago. They were terrified. I could tell. I paused at the door, heart pounding. You are Malcolm Miller, I told myself. You are the shark. I opened the door and walked in. They both stood immediately, putting on their respectable people masks. Mr. Miller, Dad said, extending a hand. Smile too wide. Thank you for seeing us. I'm Alaric Harrington. This is my wife, Linnea. We're in a terrible situation, and we heard you're the best. Actually, I believe we may have a mutual connection. Do you know? I walked past his outstretched hand to the head of the table. Didn't sit. Set my leather portfolio down with a sharp snap. Let the silence stretch. Dad's hand hung in the air for 3 seconds before he dropped it. Sit. My voice was deeper than at 16, cold, final. They hesitated, then sat. Mom tried next. Softer approach. Mr. Miller, we're just worried parents. Blaze is our baby. I'm sure you understand. If you have children of your own someday, you'll know what it's like to... I remained standing. Opened the file. Started reading. Let her voice trail off into nothing. They didn't recognize me. Why would they? Last time they saw me, I was a scrawny kid in warehouse clothes. Now, I was a 190-pound man with a beard. Different haircut, different name. And besides, in their minds, Malcolm Harrington was probably dead in a gutter somewhere. He certainly wasn't this. Before you say anything specific, I need names and whether you've been charged. If this is who I think it is, I can't touch it. We're in a terrible situation, Mr. Miller. Mom started again, voice shaking. Our son Blaze, he's a good boy. He's been targeted by his employers. They fabricated these terrible accusations about embezzlement. 189,000, I said, not looking up from the file. Wire fraud. 23 separate transactions over 23 months. That's not a misunderstanding, Linnea Harrington. That's systematic theft. I used her full name like she was a stranger. Because she was. Silence. It's a setup. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Blaze handles millions in transactions. Why would he steal that amount? It doesn't make sense. Maybe because he's got a serious sports betting problem spread across DraftKings, FanDuel, and a couple bookies in Atlantic City. Tens of thousands at loan shark rates. They went white. How do you know that? Dad whispered. That's not in the police report. I do my research, Mr. Harrington. I don't take cases I can't win. And I don't take losers. Your son looks like a loser. I paused. I could tell what the government was building just by what they weren't asking yet. How dare you? Mom gasped, standing. We came here for help, not insults. We have money. We can pay whatever. Do you? I looked up at her. Because my background check shows your house is underwater. You've maxed out 5 credit cards. Your retirement accounts are empty. You're living on Social Security and lies. Dad's face went red. Now wait just a minute. We are the Harrington family. We have standing in this community. Connections. Who do you think you're talking to, like... I closed the file. The sound echoed. I stood up, walked slowly around the table, let them sweat. You really don't know who I am, do you? The room got tense. Sweat beaded on Dad's forehead. I beg your pardon? Mom clutched her fake pearls. Have we met at the club? I let out a short, dry laugh. No humor in it. The club? No, Linnea. Let me tell you a story. I started pacing. About a 16-year-old kid, honor student, worked 40 hours a week, saved every penny. One night his younger brother robbed a school. The older brother ran to help because he'd been programmed that family protects family. And what did his parents do? I stopped behind Dad's chair. Could see his scalp through his thinning hair. They blamed the older brother, told the cops he was the criminal, put him in a car at 4 a.m. with a garbage bag and dumped him at a farm like he was trash. Took his phone, took his home. Signed away their rights like he was defective merchandise. Dad slowly turned his chair around. His mouth opened and closed. Malcolm? It came out as a squeak. Mom made a sound, half gasp, half whimper, covered her mouth with both hands, stared at me, really seeing me for the first time, finally recognizing the eyes of the kid she'd betrayed. My hand twitched. I clenched it into a fist, felt my nails dig into my palm, swallowed hard. Then I let the professional mask slide back into place. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. Or should I say, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington? I leaned back, crossed my arms. Conflict of interest. I'm not your lawyer. This meeting is over. I pulled out a firm letterhead, wrote 3 lines, signed it, slid it across the table. That's your written notice of non-representation. No conflict waiver is possible here. Whatever you say next, you're saying to a stranger. They didn't leave. Of course they didn't. Oh my God, Mom sobbed. Malcolm, it's really you. You're successful. You made something of yourself. Senior partner, I corrected. Youngest in the firm's history. The man you came begging to save your golden child. Dad stood up, legs shaky. Tried to smile. Looked more like a grimace. Son, Jesus, look at you. We had no idea. We always knew you had potential. That's why we sent you to wards. To build character. Look at you now. Success. Wealth. He gestured around. We did this for you. It was tough love. I stared at him. The absolute nerve. Rewriting history in real time to make himself the hero. Tough love, I repeated quietly. You abandoned me. Didn't call for 13 years. Didn't care if I lived or died until you needed something. We were giving you space. Space. I walked to the window. No, you were protecting your investment. Blaze was the one you poured money into. Blaze was the one worth saving. Malcolm, please, Mom cried, standing. We're family. Blood is blood. You have to help Blaze. He's your brother. He's in serious trouble. You're the best. We heard you're the best. You can fix this. Fix it, I repeated. Just like you fixed the school break-in. Just like you fixed his DUI, and his failed drug test, and his domestic assault charge. You've spent 13 years clearing his path, removing every consequence. That's why he's a criminal. You didn't raise a son. You raised a parasite. Don't talk about your brother that way, Dad shouted, old anger flashing. He made a mistake. He needs us. He needs you. He needs consequences. I turned around, voice dropping. He stole $189,000, destroyed people's careers, people who trusted him. And you want me to use my skill, my reputation, the career I built from nothing to save him? Again? You have to, Mom said, voice dropping to a hiss. Because if you don't, we'll tell everyone. We'll tell your partners, your clients, the business community. We'll tell them you abandoned your family, that you let your own brother go to prison when you could have saved him. How will that look, Mr. Miller? There it was. Blackmail. Classic Harrington move. I smiled. It was cold. Mean. You walked in here thinking you needed a defense attorney. You forgot I used to be the other side. Go ahead. Tell them. Because here's what I'm going to do. I'm refusing this case. Conflict of interest. But more importantly, I'm going to hand over every piece of evidence I have about Blaze's past crimes to the prosecution, the ones you covered up. I walked back to the table, leaned on it with both hands. And I'm going to tell them about something my analyst found. Something beautiful. See, Blaze didn't just gamble that money away. He transferred portions into a shell account. Alaric and Linnea. You weren't just protecting him. You were living off his stolen money. You knew he was stealing, and you spent the proceeds. Their faces went from red to white in seconds. That's not, Dad stammered. Your mortgage payments for the last 14 months came from that account. Your car lease, that account. Those country club dues you couldn't afford to drop, that account. You're not just enablers, you're accomplices. We didn't know where it came from, Mom whispered. I pulled out a flash drive. This has the corporate filings, property records, and a timeline built from public documents. It's not privileged because I'm not your attorney. If the subpoenas match this, the prosecution has the parents too. I leaned forward. I've watched people get buried by timelines. A timeline doesn't care how charming you are, because right now they're looking at Blaze for 8 years. But with your involvement, You're both looking at conspiracy charges. Receiving stolen property? Money laundering. That's federal prison, Linnea, not country club probation. Dad lunged forward. You wouldn't. We're your parents. You terminated that relationship in writing. I'm respecting your paperwork. I pressed the intercom. Security to conference room B. Malcolm, please, Mom shrieked. We made mistakes, but we're trying to make it right. You made choices. You chose Blaze over me 13 years ago. Now I'm choosing me. Two security guards appeared. My assistant was behind them. These people are leaving. Now. Wait! Dad grabbed the table. Malcolm, please, we're sorry. We're truly sorry. We were wrong. Please don't do this. I looked at him. Apologies usually show up before the bill. They were escorted out. I watched through the glass as they stumbled to the elevators. Mom crying, Dad holding her up. My assistant closed the door, stood beside me. You okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. But I wasn't done. I had one more move to make. I didn't leak to the press, went straight to the U.S. Attorney's office, requested a meeting with the Assistant U.S. Attorney handling Blaze's case, sat down in her office Monday morning, laid out a manila folder. You're looking at Blaze Harrington for embezzlement, I said, but you're missing the bigger picture. She opened the folder. Corporate filings, property records, UCC liens, a timeline built from public documents. His parents were in on it? Don't know. But my analyst pulled these from public records. Business registrations, property transfers, court filings. There's a pattern. If your subpoenas line up with this timeline, you've got more than one defendant. Everything's public source, non-privileged. I refused their representation in writing. She looked up at me. Why are you handing this over? You're a defense attorney. Conflict of interest. This is just a concerned citizen providing leads on a federal case. I walked out. Let the system do what systems do best when you feed them the right information through the right people. 6 weeks later, after subpoenas matched the timeline, warrants confirmed the transfers, and a grand jury that didn't care about their country club membership handed down indictments. The knock finally came at 6 a.m. It wasn't just Blaze who got arrested. It was all three of them. FBI seized computers, financial records, the leased Lexus. Their neighbors watched from windows as the Harrington family was led away in cuffs. Public opinion flipped instantly. The Golden family was fraud. By spring, Blaze pleaded guilty. Got 7 years federal time? But the beautiful part? He turned on my parents to shave off time. Testified they pressured him to steal to maintain their lifestyle. Painted them as the masterminds. The Golden child cannibalized his creators to save himself. 3 days before his sentencing hearing, Blaze showed up outside my firm. He was waiting on the sidewalk when I left for lunch, wearing a cheap suit and an ankle monitor. Bloated face, red eyes. The varsity athlete was gone. Malcolm! Voice cracked. I kept walking. He followed. Please, I was 14 and stupid. Dad told me what to say. I didn't understand. I stopped. Turned around. You understood enough to hand me the pry bar? I'm sorry. 7 years, Malcolm. I can't do that, please. The begging sounded hollow. Practiced. Same manipulation. Different decade. Blood is blood, he tried. You can't abandon family. You're not family, I said. You're just a guy I used to know who made his choices. His face crumbled, dropped to his knees right there on the sidewalk. I looked down at him, the Golden child finally facing consequences, with nobody left to bail him out. I felt nothing. Call your lawyer. I stepped around him and kept walking. For the first time in 13 years, I wasn't responsible for him. My parents were charged with conspiracy and receiving stolen property. Because of their age and lack of prior record, they avoided prison time. But by the end of the year, they'd lost everything. House foreclosed to pay restitution. Accounts frozen. Credit destroyed. Their reputation, the only thing they'd truly valued, incinerated. Their name became synonymous with fraud. 2 months later, I sat in my office reading the final report. Alaric and Linnea Harrington were living in a subsidized apartment in Camden, surviving on basic Social Security. Dad was working night security at a warehouse. Mom was trying to sell makeup on Facebook. Their fall was complete. My assistant brought me coffee. It's over. It's over, I agreed. Do you feel bad? I thought about the kid with the garbage bag. Thought about Aunt Nadine's hug. Thought about Uncle Ward teaching me to rebuild an engine, telling me I had good hands. No, I feel vindicated. I pulled out my checkbook, wrote a check for $40,000. Send this to Ward and Nadine. Tell them to buy that property they wanted. Tell them the harvest came in early. But the universe had one more gift for me. 6 months later, I was walking to my car in the firm's garage when I saw a figure step into the light. My mother. She looked broken. The woman who terrorized service workers was gone. Old woman in a wet coat 3 sizes too big. Gray hair and a messy bun. No makeup. Dollar store purse. Malcolm. Voice thin, hoarse. Linnea. Couldn't call her mom. Word didn't fit anymore. She flinched. I've been waiting. 3 hours. I need to talk to you. What do you want? Your father. He's sick. Heart problems, diabetes. Medicine costs a fortune. Medicare doesn't cover everything. The rent. They raised it. We're drowning, Malcolm, please. Just a few thousand to get through spring. You have so much. I looked at her, waited for anger, rage, hatred. There was nothing, just distant pity, like seeing a stranger's broken down car on the highway. Have you asked Blaze for help? Bitter laugh. He calls collect from Lewisburg every week asking for commissary money. Says we ruined his life. Says we should have hired better lawyers. He had the best lawyers money could buy his whole life. Look where it got him. Malcolm, please. She stepped forward, hand reaching but not touching. I know we hurt you. I know we made terrible mistakes, but we're old. We're your parents. Blood is... Stop! I held up my hand. Blood is just biology. You taught me that when you signed those papers. When you took my phone. When you dumped me like garbage. We were wrong. We know that now. We're sorry. You're not sorry. You're desperate. There's a difference. I got in my car. The door closed with a solid thunk. Started the engine. The garage filled with the sound. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw her standing there. Small. Defeated. In the harsh fluorescent light. I didn't back out immediately. Instead, I lowered the window halfway. Let the rain hit my face. You want to know the real joke, Linnea? I said. I spent 13 years imagining this moment. Dreaming about the day you'd come begging. About what I'd say. What devastating thing I'd do to make you feel what I felt. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. And now that it's here, I feel nothing. You're not my parents. You're not family. You're just two strangers who made bad choices and have to live with them. Just like I had to live with yours. Malcolm, Blaze gets out in 6 years, I continued. He'll come to you for money. For a place to stay. For bail on whatever he does next. And you'll give it to him because that's what you do. You'll choose him over yourselves, just like you chose him over me. And he'll bleed you dry until there's nothing left. That's your legacy. That's what you built. I put the car in reverse. Goodbye, Linnea. I rolled up the window. Backed out. The headlights swept across her face one last time. Mascara running, mouth open, hand raised like she was trying to stop time. I drove out of the garage. Didn't look in the rear view. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.